Welcome everyone back to the show. I am excited to have Anmoll, a Vedic Astrologer, back on the podcast. As you recall, we had her on earlier to talk all about her expertise in astrology, and you know this is something that I just absolutely love to talk about. So we're so honored to have your expertise back here on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me here.
And we're going to jump right in. So I know we've already talked about your first initial experiences with spirituality
Yeah,
last time on the podcast, and I wanted to ask you when, because we have spiritual experiences all the time now, especially, you being an astrologer and me being an
definitely.
Ayurvedic healer, it happened. So I'd love to hear what was the most recent spiritual experience you had?
This is actually really true that we being astrologers, it's like daily, it's like daily routine for us to have such experiences because, listening to people's story is a part of our own spiritual experience, right? Like there's so much about it that we can talk and we feel a lot out of it, right? So one time I would like to talk about here will be the time, like a few weeks ago, I had a consultation with a client of mine. She was quite shy and introvert type of personality, and she was not like very comfortable talking to me about anything. Like about she took a consultation because I think she might have felt something that she wanted to know about it, but she was not even able to communicate that to me.
Mm.
So she just simply asked me, I actually give two options to people. Like either you can ask me to predict simply what I see, or you can just go on and talk about your situation and let me know, and that I'll just answer the questions. So she just randomly asked me to predict about her. So whenever I go for predictions, for knowing a person internally, I go to the fourth house to know how their childhood was and
Mm.
how they have been, how they have grown up, how they have been on the inside. Because fourth houses are inner heart. It's our heart. It's how we connect. So in spirituality as well, we need that fourth house connection to connect to the divine, right? So I could see childhood trauma, a major childhood trauma in her chart. And when I just mentioned it and she opened all about it. She cried, she opened all about it. And that, I think that moment connected me a lot, like emotionally, spiritually. And I was really thankful to the God that I am into this profession and I can connect to people on that level,
Oh,
you know?
that is so special. I Similarly, when you have clients that have that resistance and you don't want to poke and pride, especially when you're intuitive and you can feel that resistance initially, you're like, oh,
Exactly.
there's a wall here, maybe I should turn, I shouldn't go there. But
Yeah,
at the same time, we know having those uncomfortable conversations end up being the most fruitful because it ends up causing that resistance to shift into their greatest opportunity. Because, even something
exactly.
like a trauma can be turned into a great opportunity, can be turned into a gift. That's what it shows us. So that's
Definitely.
so beautiful.
Yeah. I think everyone who has achieved their goals in their life has some trauma that they don't talk about, but that was a catalyst for them to become
Yes.
what they are today. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, my teacher calls it the initiation process
Oh,
where it's like
okay.
that is what started you, like
Uh-huh.
that catapulted you on this whole journey, and it's
Yeah.
become a part of your mythology that it just continues throughout your life.
Yes, definitely.
So something that I really wanted to go into today, a topic is
Uh-huh.
talking about the dashas.
Okay.
And before we get into what that means too, we're going to go into something called tribhagis. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, yes. Tribhagis. Yeah.
Tribhagis. And yeah, I love this discussion because there's so many different facets of Vedic astrology, which makes it so unique as in compared to Western astrology that it's really not, it's so beyond just your sun, moon, and rising sign. There's all these other intricacies that really come into play into your chart. So can we first get into what is a dasha?
Okay. So, there are so many things in astrology to talk about, especially on the Parasha side. So Vimshotari Dasha, or we call it simply Dasha, because there are a lot of dashas in astrology. Dashas is basically the time period that a person goes through It's simply the time activation whenever a planets get activated, or it activates some houses, um, according to the time, right? So most prominently in astrology, we use Vimshottari Dasha, and we are going to talk about it only here because it is the most important dasha that we use in astrology. And each and every planet is actually given a certain amount of time for which it is going to get activated. And whichever nakshatra we are born in, like our moon is in whichever nakshatra, the lord of that nakshatra is going to be the dasha lord. Like for
Mm.
example, if someone is born in, suppose, Uttar Bhadrapada nakshatra in Pisces, right? Moon in Pisces. So a person is going to start with the Saturn Mahadasha, and that is going to be for 19 years long.
Mm.
So whenever a dasha gets started, a person gets the characteristics of that particular planet, and all the houses that gets activated according to the placement, according to the house rulership, everything gets activated, and the results are, seen according to that. So it's actually very important technique to find out event predictions, like when your marriage is going to happen, when your promotion is going to happen, what you're going to do, how you're going to behave. So dasha plays a very important role here.
Mm. Yeah, I guess my interest is there's so many other components that happen of what's happening, like what planets are transiting certain
Uh-huh.
signs, and to what, how do you weigh these things of dasha
Uh-huh.
and the transits and the planets? Yeah, like how do you balance all of that?
uh, Astrology is about a combination of all the things. Like I've seen people predicting just from the dasha only, then just from the transits only. They don't consider each and every part of it. And astrology is actually about considering each and every part of it. So when it's about transits and dashas, dashas always have the more weightage. Like suppose you're going through a Saturn transit, but if your dasha is not promising a situation that your transit is getting activated, right? Like suppose your Saturn is activating your first house, your Saturn is transiting in your first house. Like for Capricorn ascendant people, right now, Saturn is in the ascendant, right? So Saturn is getting activated. It is going to bring all that criticism, all that judgment, all that delays in the life, right? But if the Mahadasha is not you know similar to it, or it doesn't promise
Mm.
such situation, it won't happen.
Mm.
So dasha is really important, even more than transits. Transits will come and go, you might not even feel the effect of it until unless the dasha uh, you know is equivalent to it.
I love that. And I think for our audience, it's really helpful to understand because in Ayurveda, it's all about balancing the elements. And it's like when you
Yes.
have something in excess, then you bring in the other element to balance with it. So that makes total sense that Vedic astrology would hold that
Yes.
as well in this aspect. I'm curious to hear. So each planet has their dasha. Does each planet
Uh-huh.
have a different amount of years that rules that dasha period?
Yes, every planet, like we start from nakshatras. So very first nakshatra is Ashwini. It becomes the dasha of Ketu because Ashwini is ruled by Ketu. It comes for 7 years. Then we come to Venus. It comes for 20 years. So all the planets have their
Mm.
own duration. Like Sun has 6 years, Moon has 10 years, Rahu comes for 18 years. So some planets are come for really long time, and some planets are there for a short period of time.
And you won't necessarily go through each planet dasha within your lifetime.
No, that's not possible. Like I have personally seen, like if you're born in, suppose, Ketu Mahadasha. No, I'm sorry, not Ketu. If you're born in Sun Mahadasha, you'll have 6 years of Sun, then you'll have 10 years of Moon, then you'll have 7 years of Mars. Then there is possibility that you're going through 4 planets in your lifetime. But suppose if you're born in Rahu Mahadasha, if you're born in Venus Mahadasha, if you're born in Saturn Mahadasha, it becomes like almost impossible
Mm.
to go through many mahadashas. It's just 2 or 3 maximum.
Totally. I'd love to hear what are some of these characteristics of each of the planets' dashas.
Okay, so each and every planet gives its significance or whatever nature or tattva they have, right? Like, for example, I would say I'm going to connect it very practically and not with the bookish one, because I personally feel that in books we have read something else, but in Mahadasha we actually experience a lot different things.
Totally.
First of all, in Sun Mahadasha, Sun is what? Sun is our personality. We always, hear about it, that your sun sign will tell about your personality, how you look, or how you represent yourself out in public, right? So what happens in Sun Mahadasha is it is more career oriented. What I have personally seen, that people achieve a lot of career, achievements, or they are very career oriented in Sun Mahadasha, and they always want to be on the top, because Sun was the king. Sun
Mm.
wants to have all the royalties, all the pleasures in life. So similarly, it happens. Then, if we are in Moon Mahadasha, because Sun and Moon are the most important planets that we consider, it's like day and night. So in Moon Mahadasha, a person becomes very emotional. A person becomes very soft, just like a mother. So in Moon Mahadasha, there are maximum number of chances that if you are a female, or if you are a male as well, you're going to have a child. There are most chances, but it is not necessary that it is going to happen. We need to see the placements, we need to see the house activations as well. But you yourself become like very motherly,
Mm.
whichever kid you are going to come across, or even you are if you are going to come across animals, you're going to behave like that, right? And Moon is also related to a lot of fluctuations in life, because Moon is a wobbly planet, it has different phases. So that is why it gives very fluctuating results. Then comes Mars, and then comes Rahu. Mars is also very status oriented and career oriented. So in Mars, you'll always see in Mars people buy properties, but people also take debts. In Mars and
Mm.
Mercury, definitely people take debts, because in Mercury a person wants to look youthful, a person wants to look young. They have maximum number of surgeries in Rahu, in Mars, in Mercury, in Ketu. But in Mercury, it's more so about beautifying yourself, about making you look really young. So these very, small and minute details tells us what the results are going to be.
Wow, so fascinating how it can really change the flavor of each of the planets and bring all these other outcomes.
Yeah.
So, how does this work in relation to if you were to have, let's say, a Mercury Dasha, but you were
Hmm.
in uh, S- Saturn in return, so Saturn transiting back into its
Uh-huh.
original home sign?
Uh-huh.
How would you balance both of those?
See, I would say that the dashas analysis, every analysis just deepens the results, right? So Saturn return is like just Saturn is transiting. But I told you earlier as well, even if Saturn is transiting, and if the dasha is not promising the similar result, it might not happen, right? So Saturn return, of course you're going to feel the results for that. You're going to feel that pressure, you're going to feel that challenge of Saturn return, because Saturn is coming back to its house after so many years, right? But it might, the effect of negative and positive will vary because of the dasha. Like
Mm,
in Mercury dasha, a person becomes very indecisive, a
mm,
person becomes very uh, go with the flow kind of situation. There is a person is not very serious, but Saturn is like very opposite. You need to be very serious, you need to be very disciplined. So if Mercury Mahadasha is there, a person actually becomes very confused and has a dual nature during this time. You will be facing the challenges that Saturn is bringing in, but Mercury will make it very difficult for you to balance that. So there comes the problem of balance. So that
mm.
is how we'll conclude a solution out of it.
Wonderful. And did we talk about Jupiter? What a Jupiter Dasha is like?
No, 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 we didn't talk about it. Okay, so Jupiter and Saturn, these both of these planets have a little bit of similar, results. The only difference is that Jupiter is a hard task master, and Saturn is a karma giver. So both are the teachers. Saturn is going to give you results on the basis of the karma you're doing. So in Saturn Mahadasha, what happens is, if you're doing good karma, you're going to get good results. If you're doing bad karma, instantly you're going to get negative results, or instantly you're going to get a similar situation on yourself. But in Jupiter, Jupiter is actually a teacher who is going to teach you irrespective of what karma you're doing. You have just carried on some karma from your past, which you have to play out. And Jupiter is the most benefic planet. So you'll hear most of the people saying that in Jupiter Mahadasha, you are going to have the very good time. You are going to have the most amazing time. But actually, it doesn't happen like that. Rather, Rahu is just before Jupiter. You're going to get everything easy in Rahu. But in Jupiter, you need to learn a lesson before you get anything. So there's always a lesson or some higher learning connected to it, because Jupiter is about wisdom. It's about higher learning. Yeah. And one more thing I have seen very prominently with Jupiter is that in Jupiter Mahadasha, you see a lot of souls departing around you. So you have a lot of deaths in your ancestors, in your family, or around in your neighborhood as well.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Now I wanted to go into tribhagis and what are they, and how are they different? How are there different tribhagis for each planet?
Okay, so as the name suggests, it's tribhagi, means three bhag. It's a Hindi word, like Sanskrit word. Tribhagi means three divisions of something, right? So all the Mahadashas, I've told you the duration they go for, like Sun for 6 years, then Moon for 10 years, then 7 years of Mars, then 18 years of Rahu. We just have to divide them by 3. And whatever time we get, that is actually the duration of each tribhagi. And why we divide them into 3 is because each and every planet rules 3 nakshatras in the nakshatra belt. Right? Like, for example, Sun starts from Kritika Nakshatra. Kritika Nakshatra, a part of it is in Taurus and a part of it is in Aries. Right? So Sun rules Kritika Nakshatra, then Sun rules Uttarashad Nakshatra, then it rules one more nakshatra. I'm not remembering it. It's Kritika. It's something in Virgo. Leo, Uttara Falguni. I always forget Uttara Falguni. Okay, so Uttara Falguni nakshatra.
It's a hard one to pronounce.
Yeah. So what happens is that these are the 3 periods divided by Sun. So you are going to get the effects of Kritika for 2 years each. Then you're going to get effects of Uttara Falguni for 2 years. Then you're going to get effects of Uttara Ashar for 2 years. Right? And how do we want to see it? We see it from the moon. Like, for example, a person is, suppose, Gemini, right? Gemini moon. Right? This person is going to have the first tribhagi of Leo and Virgo, the Uttara Falguni. So we are going to take what is the next sign that comes.
Got it. So, for example, I believe my moon is in Vishaka, and I don't know if I started.
It's Jupiter.
Started in a Jupiter Dasha.
Yeah. So you started with Jupiter Mahadasha, and Jupiter is divided into 3 parts. So it is going to be probably 5 years and 4 months for each tribhagi. And then you'll see you are born in the Scorpio side of Vishakha, I suppose.
Yes.
Right? So you're going to take Purva Bhadrapada at the very first in Aquarius. So we'll make Aquarius as your ascendant, and that is going to be your first tribhagi chart, and we are going to predict from that.
Oh, so interesting.
Yeah. And one thing which is very important, you need not to forget all the other things. You need not to forget the ascendant chart. You should consider ascendant chart, moon chart, the Mahadasha chart. And then tribhagi is just an add-on to deepen the analysis. It's not just you are going to give the analysis only on the basis of tribhagi. It's just an addition to it.
Mm, got it. So, what would be the tribhagis for a Mercury Dasha?
Okay, so Mercury rules, or the Mercury nakshatras are present in all the water signs,
Mm,
right? Starting from we'll take Cancer. Cancer has Ashlesha nakshatra.
mm-hmm.
Then we have Scorpio. We have Jeshta nakshatra in Scorpio. Then we have Pisces as the third sign, which has Revati nakshatra, the very last nakshatra,
Mm,
right? And Mercury comes for 17 years. So it is probably 6 years and 8 months of for each tribhagi. So what we'll do is, what you want to see whatever moon you are, right? Suppose we'll again take Gemini as an example. You are Gemini moon. The first tribhagi is going to be the Cancer ascendant.
mm,
We are going to take Ashlesha in the ascendant, and we are going to predict accordingly. And the most important thing that we have to see is that wherever Mercury goes from your tribhagi, like
mm,
from Cancer, suppose you have exalted Mercury in the third house in Virgo. So that house is going to get activated.
mm.
And in whichever nakshatra Mercury is in, that nakshatra is going to get activated, and the Lord is also going to get activated. So
Mm,
on this basis, like suppose Mercury is in Hasta nakshatra, and not Hasta, I would take Mercury is in Uttara Falguni nakshatra, and Sun is in the ninth house, directly opposite to it. So that means a person is in this tribhagi in the first 6 years, 6 years and 8 months, a person is going to be involved into publishing and writing a lot,
mm.
and they're going to travel for that.
So, does the nakshatra, how would that, the difference of the flavor of the nakshatra for a dasha be different than the flavor of a nakshatra that we get on a new moon or a full moon?
I didn't understand the question.
So I'm most familiar with learning about the chakras
Mhm.
or learning about the nakshatras when it's a new
Uh-huh.
moon or a full moon, because then I understand what the moon is like under that
Where
sign.
moon is transiting at that time. You're talking about that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
How would
Okay.
that be different than when planet's dasha takes over that certain nakshatra?
Okay. See, it depends on the significance of planet. Like suppose you're talking about new moon, right? In
Mm-hmm.
new moon, what happens? New moon or full moon, anything like that. What happens is on just the moon transits, and this eclipse happens or the new moon happens there. It's like it's the effect for the present moment, or it's just the effect with the eclipses, with the new moons, with the full moons. The effect is only in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
It is not going to affect this, it is not going to give circumstantial effects. But with the nakshatras and the planets in it, they have different results. Like with Mercury nakshatra, it is going to be more about your intellect, it's going to be more about your communication. But with only in the transits, it's going to be about how you're presently feeling emotionally. So you can't make a major prediction, or you can't say that this is going to happen because of this. That is only possible with planets in nakshatras in your own chart, and not in the transits.
Awesome. So I'm curious, how has understanding dashas and tribhagis been really beneficial for your clients?
uh, you know Always when people ask me to predict for them, they always want more and more about everything. If I'm giving out predictions, suppose they are going through one particular dasha, I have told them the fundamental predictions for that dasha, and then how that will affect them on a personal level because of their placements in the chart. But they always want to know deeper about it. They want to know things which are very hard to see on a basis. Like Rahu comes for 18 years, right? I'm going to predict a result for 18 years, but it might not happen for each and
Mm,
every day in 18 years. So what happens is, the more we go into it, we can into it in the form of antardashas, pratyantar dashas, suksham dashas, but that becomes very confusing. for a layman to predict, right? Because there are so many planets and so many planets are activating so many houses. It becomes very, very confusing. But with tribhagi, what happens is you can give direct interpretations. You can just use Mahadasha and Antardasha as a fundamental result, right? And then you can use Tribhagi to tell them how this particular time period is going to be for you. Like, for example, in Sun Mahadasha, I can tell you, apart from how it is going to behave for 7 years, I can tell you how it is going to behave for particular 2 years.
Hmm.
So it just deepens the results. It just deepens the knowledge.
Hmm.
So people are actually very fascinated with this fact, because for a normal person, it's very hard to know that. Suppose I am Cancer ascendant, right? I'm just supposing that I'm not Cancer actually, but if suppose I'm Cancer ascendant, I'm going to behave like that. But for suppose I'm going through Rahu Mahadasha, I'm going to behave like air signs as well. I'm never going to think that I'm going to behave like air signs until unless I know about the Tribhagi. So
Hmm.
it gives that reasoning, it gives that answers to our questions.
Definitely. Which Dasha period do you feel like you've seen the most with your clients that they're in?
Mostly people that come to seek astrology consultations are either going through Rahu Mahadasha
Hmm.
or they are going through Jupiter Mahadasha. I've seen people with Jupiter active come to, but it's like they come on very verge, either in the very beginning or in the very end. I've seen
Hmm.
this thing, I've noticed this thing. Or otherwise, I would say Mercury Mahadasha. Because
Interesting.
Mercury makes a person very curious.
Hmm.
Actually, we consider Ketu being a very research oriented planet, but in Ketu Mahadasha, a person is so surrounded by all their realizations of past life, this life, that they hardly care about getting a astrology consultation.
Hmm.
Although people say that Ketu Mahadasha, people are seeking for what
Right.
is there, how is it, but more than that, it's Mercury, that people
Hmm.
are very curious to know about everything. Mercury, Rahu, planets like that.
That's so interesting because I would think that K2 is loves that spirituality and loves
Yes.
that's what we associate with that loves to
Yeah.
connect to that. But that makes sense that they wouldn't want something predictive, that they would want something more uh, introspective.
Yeah. Actually, with Ketu, I've seen people become, people just research, and they become so fed up. They don't want anyone else opinions. They just want to research on their own. That is the reason they don't seek consultations.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so again, just going in the placements of uh, the planets. So starting with Jupiter, and then it goes
Mhm.
into Saturn.
Yes. After Jupiter, we have Saturn.
And then do you mind just taking us through the rest of the planets?
Okay. So first we start with Ketu. I told you we start with the nakshatra belt. Our first one is Ashwini, so we have Ketu there. The second one is Bharani, so we have Venus there. And after Venus, there comes Sun, then Moon, then Mars. Then after Mars, it's Rahu. After Rahu, it's Jupiter, then Saturn, then Mercury, then again Ketu. So
Mm.
that's the sequence for it.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. That was very helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, there's so much info, I'm sure, that our listeners are just hopefully you have your chart. I'll make sure that I'll put that in the intro so everyone can be checking their charts and seeing what dashas that you're in and giving just a little snippets of what that could be like at the time period that you're going through. I'm curious if you have noticed that in April we're going to be having 4 planetary shifts of
Exactly.
Ketu, Rahu, Jupiter, and Saturn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of big energy. I'm already feeling it. My teacher has taught me that before the planets move signs, they tend to intensify before. And whoa,
Exactly.
I've totally been feeling so much change and transformation. And I'm just curious what you have started to notice in this transition time and maybe what you
Mhm.
predict what will come in April.
Yeah, and it's actually a very interesting subject to talk about. The transits that are going to happen in April. I just recently made the YouTube video for that.
Oh, nice.
And, it's actually going to be a very self-oriented period, I would say. If I want to just conclude that in one line, it's going to be a very individualistic period for everyone, because Rahu, I actually, how we predict for the transits is that we take a day when the final transits happen. For Saturn, it is going to transit on 29th April, right? So that is going to be the last transit of the month. We have first we have Rahu, then we have Jupiter transiting, Rahu Ketu transit, then Jupiter transiting, then Saturn transiting. So if we open the chart for 29th April or 30th April, to be very precise, we get Sun along with Rahu in as a solar eclipse in the sign of Aries, right? And then Saturn is in Aquarius. It's 11th from Rahu, and Rahu is third from Saturn. And then we have Jupiter, which is squeezed between Saturn and Rahu because it is in Pisces. It is going to transit in Pisces, right? So I would say, first of all, these are next to next houses. Like we have first Aquarius, then the very next house is Pisces, then the very next house is Aries. So all these three houses for everyone is going to get activated. And Saturn is giving its third aspect to Rahu. Rahu is a rebel energy. Rahu just wants to achieve with an endless hunger. If I want to do something, I want to achieve a goal. If I'm Rahu, I'm not going to stop until unless I achieve it. And even if I achieve it, there is no, settling down for anything less than what I want. Right? And Saturn's third aspect is actually its debilitated aspect. You have to make a lot of efforts for that. So what I think is, people are going to become individualistic, and relationships are not going to be much of a concern for them, because Ketu is in the sign of Libra. And whenever Ketu is a planet who says, I've achieved it. So if it is in Libra, it's like, I have achieved the relationships in my past life. I'm not going to consider them. I'm going to go towards Rahu there. So I think for the next almost 18 months, relationships are not going to be on the cards. There are not going to be a lot of marriages or unionships. People are going to consider or look after self-love, regarding their own personality, beautifying themselves, giving competition to other people. But it would require an extra effort because of third aspect of Saturn. And it is going to be about large organizations, since Saturn is an Aquarius, and Aquarius is about other people. It's about, doing things for a mass population, for the benefit of them. And in this process, because Jupiter is 12th from Rahu, I think, morals, or because Jupiter is about higher understanding, it's about morals, it's about what is right, what is wrong. People might not, look into that, because it's 12th from Rahu. 12th from any planet means loss of it. Something you're oblivion about. So you're going to be oblivion about the belief system. You're going to be oblivion about what is right, what is wrong. You just want to achieve it. So this is what result I think this transit is going to bring in.
Thank you for that. That's so specific. I love all the connections with that. I have so many thoughts on that, because personally, I am in my Saturn return. I'm very excited for Saturn, even though he's only going to be transiting Aquarius and, dipping back into Capricorn. I'm excited for a little bit of a breather. But I also am really hopeful for the Jupiter in Pisces, because Jupiter feels pretty good being in Pisces, and that expansive energy. Again, my teacher was saying that this will be really fruitful for those who are connected to Jupiter, healers alike, because we are the teachers, and teachers and healers get to receive this abundance. So I'm looking forward to that.
Jupiter actually, all the dual signs brings in dual results. So with Jupiter being in Pisces, it can either make you very spiritual, it can help you with all the spiritual practices, healings, and all the, travels for pilgrimages and everything
Mm,
like that, or it can make you oblivion about it. Because
mm,
Pisces has a duality in it. The sign of Pisces, either you are too involved in something or you're too devoted in something, because Pisces sign is the sign of devotion,
mm,
or you're just oblivion about it. You just want to escape and run from it, because Pisces is also about escapism. So it
mm,
depends that where your natal Jupiter is and which Mahadasha you are going through. That is going to tell that what this transit is going to do for you.
so amazing. So, where can our listeners learn more from you, learning about what dasha that they're in, and tribhagis, and all this amazing offerings that you have?
So, for learning part, I would say I have a YouTube channel by the name of Anmoll Astrology channel, and I post videos on these transits and more educational stuff there, so people can go visit that and listen to them. And respect of readings, I just got new readings on my website, www.anmolastrology.com, and there it's a section with unique readings. So in unique readings, I have tribhagi over there. If people want to know just about how their tribhagis are going to play out in respect of dashas as well. So it's always a combination. It's not straight out result, it's always a combination. So I explain that over there. And then I have nakshatras for natal chart. I have nakshatra analysis for the Navamsha chart. So I have unique readings over there. So people who want to know more about their chart, who want to have deep knowledge about their chart, they can go and have consultation there.
Beautiful. I will have your YouTube linked. I know I checked it out. It's so fruitful and so much goodness in there. And I will also
Thank
have
you.
linked how they can connect with you with your beautiful offerings and learn more about their chart. And I just want to thank you so much for your wisdom. I swear I learned so much always whenever I have you on the podcast and you just spit out so much information. It's so beautiful. So thank you for
Yeah,
your knowledge and your time.
you're most welcome. And thank you for your time as well.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next time.